Good. Good afternoon. As it is 5:30 p.m., I will call this City Council meeting of December 3rd, 2024 to order. We acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people and pay our respect to those past and present. With that, if everyone could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This will be both a physical meeting and virtual meeting. Thank you. Some members of city staff or consultants may be participating via teleconference. Today's meeting may be viewed on YouTube, Facebook, and following the meeting on cable channel 10 HD 1090. I do not need to ask the city clerk to take roll as everyone is present and accounted for. So with that, we are going to move to approval of the agenda. Staff has requested that we move agenda item 8A, bid award for construction of fire station number 82 to follow the consent agenda. Are there any other suggested changes to the regular agenda? All right, hearing no, oh yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion as presented to approve agenda as amended, seconded by Councilmember Marshall. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, approves unanimously. Thank you so much. So next we have presentations. Tonight we have a holiday wreath presentation by Oak Harbor Boy Scout Troop 4059, led by Scoutmaster Ricky Ford. I would like to welcome you all, and we will move forward with that presentation. Great, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Do you want to take a picture?
Oh, they're going to want a picture. Yeah, if you
guys want to take a picture with
do
them?
a 180. So Maggie, oh, there, you can get a picture. Yeah. Can you do that?
You want to stand up? No, we can do that.
However you can fit.
Both sides, guys.
All right, right over here. Okay, ready? 1, 2, and 3. Listen, you guys squeeze in a little bit more there. All right, 1, 2, and 3. Perfect. Very good.
Thank you so much.
I was one of you guys a couple of years ago. Yeah, that shed you guys did all the stuff is. I built that. My dad ran it 40-some years ago. 50-some years ago. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much again, guys.
It's always beautiful. It never smells great. And every year it surprises me.
It smells good, though. All right, we're going to move on to the citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on consent agenda items or subjects of interest not listed on the agenda at this time. Citizens will have the opportunity to comment on the remaining agenda items during the meeting as appropriate. Citizens can also visit our website prior to our meetings for methods to submit public comment or contact the city clerk, Julie Nestor, by phone or email. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously or from a false address will be shared with the mayor and council but will not be displayed. We received 2 new public comments since our last regular meeting. They are displayed here. So, and for everyone's knowledge up here and that's present tonight, the second comment that was shared tonight has also been forwarded to the facilitator for tomorrow night, and we also invited that person to attend tomorrow as well. So we will be sharing that again tomorrow night as well. Comment on public hearing items will be taken when those hearings are opened. Are there any members of the public present who wish to speak to items listed on the agenda or on the consent agenda? If so, the clerk will call your name in the order in which you signed in to speak. Please step forward to the microphone and state your name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. At this time, Julie, do we have anyone signed up to make public comment?
Yes, Mayor. Melissa York has requested to make comment.
My name is Melissa York. I'm not actually going to state my address due to safety concerns, but I do live right outside of city limits in the county. My comment is in regards to when city council where it's held and if it is conducive to getting our public to come in and participate in meetings. Also tomorrow, if the amount of people I know coming, they will not fit into this room. That is a concern, I think, that many people have seen online. That does need to be considered and talked about, because I do feel that could be problematic. Second thing on that, how does well, you can't answer and I understand that. So the city council needs to have the public aware of how you will deal with hostile environments. The comments online are hostile. I have been attacked on my business page, which, nobody's in control of that, and I'm not going to stop speaking out in regards to our public. But the city council needs to recognize that you are not making it easy for people to want to come here. There's not enough room. I can't find anywhere on city council if we actually have a meeting conference area that was talked about in the water treatment facility. I know that was something that was discussed when it was being built. I cannot locate if that is there. I think that the city needs to really consider a new area of holding meetings so that you can get your community involved. You do not, people don't want to show up because it's small. They don't think there's going to be, enough room. Tomorrow, I do think that the city and the facilitators really need to reconsider holding it here and finding a bigger place tomorrow, finding a business or something, because I do believe that you need to make it so that all the people can show up. Even if only 10 or 20 show up, you have people that are aware of what's going on online. And that will be all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, that concludes those that signed up in advance of the meeting to speak.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. Is there anybody else that's with us here this evening that would like to step forward and make a comment at this time about non-consent agenda items? All right. Hearing none, we will move forward with the consent agenda. We will now move to the consent agenda. Staff has presented the listed consent agenda items, all of which were included in the meeting packet. Are there any objections or changes to the consent agenda as it was presented? Hearing none, may I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion as presented by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Wiggenstein. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we are going to move forward to the first item under the agenda, which is contracts and agreements, or the item that we moved forward. And it is the bid award for construction of Fire Station 82 by Valdez Construction. And here to introduce that this evening is our Fire Chief, Travis Anderson. He will be presenting, and he will be assisted by our Central Services Manager, Sandra Place.
That means you're up here. You can't assist from over there, no. Mayor Wright, members of City Council, good evening. As the Fire Chief and representative of the Oak Harbor Fire Department, it's both an honor and a privilege to stand before you tonight. I'm excited to present our request for your approval to award the bid for Station 82 to Valdez Construction. So we started beginning a solicitation for formal bids back on October 2nd. We solicited in those four documents: the Builders Exchange of Washington, Whidbey News Times, Seattle Daily Journal of Commerce, and City of Oak Harbor website. We required a mandatory pre-bid conference and site walkthrough at the site. There was some different issues we wanted to make sure that the builders that were bidding on this would know about, so we required that. There was 11 general contractors that showed up, a total of 4 submitted bids on October 28th here in City Council chambers. The original estimate from the architecture firm was $4,855,000. These are the bids that came in, so Valdez was the lowest responsible bid. These numbers do not include tax, so you'll see the final number is a little bit higher when we add Washington state tax into it. We reviewed the documents, 4 members from internal staff. I appreciate everyone for helping out from Public Works, and we reviewed, Carletti Architects also reviewed it to make sure that it met all the requirements. We went through the bidder checklist and Everything was good for all four generals that submitted stuff. We contacted references. I went down to the fire station they built down in South Whidbey. They had nothing but great things to say about it. It's a beautiful station. I know Sandra reached out to numerous other agencies that had buildings constructed by them, and she had nothing but positive feedback as well. This funding for this project will be funded by the unlimited tax general obligation bond approved by voters during the 2022 general election. We are asking for a 10% contingency fund for any issues that come up. We don't know until they start digging in the dirt how much soil they may have to remove, how much soil they may have to bring back, or any other issues that come to light. So with that, the bid amount was $4,369,757. Once we add tax, that goes to $4,763,035. With that 10% contingency, which is $476,303, we're asking for a total amount of $5,230,000, or not to exceed a total of $5,239,338.64. So this is the motion that we're asking you to make, and I'm here for any questions you may have.
Great, thanks, Chief Anderson. And then I will just confirm with Julie that we've received no public comment on this.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments were received.
All right, and I would like to ask those that are with us here this evening, do you have any comment that you would like to make at this time on this issue? If you would, please step forward, state your name, address, and your comment. All right, hearing none, I will call upon council for their questions and comments at this time. Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
I'm glad to see it went to a local contractor. That's always nice. If I remember correctly, the bond passed was for 9.2 million. Does that sound correct?
Dave Goldman, Deputy City Administrator. Yes, it was for $9.2 million.
And that was for the station and the quint?
Correct. The quint's going to run about $1.2 million. And the remainder, well, we paid $850,000 for the land, and we did some preliminary land work, so that's $850,000. Plus, we have engineering as well. That might run about $500,000 or so. And then the remainder is for construction and other uses related to the fire station.
So I guess the two questions, if you could do the math real quick, does this put us on budget?
Yeah, this puts us under budget, yep.
Under budget. That's even better. And then timing-wise, are we looking more or less on time? I think it was, what, end of 25, early 26?
Yeah, so we're planning on, or hoping to bring back a contract to you the first council meeting in January. It is a 12-month build, was part of the bid. So if they stay on time and don't run into any challenges when it comes to weather or anything, other unforeseen things, should look forward about the first quarter of 2026.
Okay.
Although,
I think we're like right at we're planning on about 60 days behind, but yeah, we're close to being on time.
Okay.
Yeah.
But under budget, that's always a nice thing to hear. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick clarifying question. The previous screen had a total of 5 million change, but this one says total 476. Okay, not to exceed. So the
Yeah.
476,
That's with the 10% tax
Gotcha.
Yeah, we gotta
Okay.
add
added
tax.
onto it, and then we have a 10% contingency fund
okay.
that we
Yeah.
can approve for any issues that come up.
Perfect. So the total,
I'm sorry, the total should not exceed 5 million.
5,239,338.64.
Good catch.
yeah, just want to make sure we have the right motion. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anything else? Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. The engineer's estimate at $4,855,000, did that include the tax? Or was that pre-tax estimate?
I would assume
Wait.
it included,
what is that number?
I was not involved at the very beginning, but I would assume that that included tax, because they knew they would have to be paying that
Okay.
for the engineer's estimate.
Now, is it normal on a contingency to do it after the tax is included? I thought in most cases, when we do the 10% contingency, it's on the pre-tax amount, not on the post-tax amount.
I mean, the difference between the two numbers is slight, because it's math. You're multiplying a number by 10% and then multiplying the total number by 9% tax, I mean, you can back that out, it'd be a couple, maybe, 20,000 or so, perhaps.
I think the other thought process there, though, Councilmember Marshall, is if we do end up going over on costs, we're probably going to pay tax on whatever those costs are. So that's why that 10% contingency includes tax in there.
But you'll still have to pay tax on that additional contingency.
Right, I think doesn't that include the tax, though? That's what I was getting
Yeah,
at.
the taxes on the base and also the 10% contingency. So that total number includes tax on both. You seem to be asking for not including tax on both.
No, so normally when we do, if I remember correctly, normally when we do the contingency, it's on the pre-tax amount. So in this case would be 400,369 or something, right? Or 436,000, right? And then you add tax on top of that. So my question is, if we do the contingency of 476,000, are we doing then another 9% tax on top of that?
I mean, we have to pay tax on it anyway, so whether we tax it beforehand or tax it afterhand, would still end up being around the same number.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I just wanted to make sure that 476 included the tax then.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Not to put you on the spot, if you don't know, it's okay. But I noticed one of the projects Valdez recently did was South Whidbey Fire and EMS Station down south, Bayview. I'm assuming you've been to that station.
Yes, I have.
Can you give us an idea, comparative of size-wise, the similar size stations?
I'm
or
guessing it's probably 4 times bigger.
4 times bigger?
It's 4 bays. This is 2 bays. It also houses their administration, all their offices, several stories. So, yeah, it's much larger. This is a relatively small fire station when it comes to terms of fire stations.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiesner. Anybody else? All right, hearing no further questions or comments, I would entertain a motion. Mayor Pro Tem.
Let me pull up the, Julie, is it acceptable if I move to award the bid for fire station number 82 to Valdez Construction?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, if you could add for an amount not to exceed $5,239,338.64.
For an amount not to exceed $5,239,338.64. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion as presented, seconded by Councilmember Marshall. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you, and sorry about that.
Sandra, have fun at the concert. All right, we are going to move forward now to mayor's comments. We have a city council vacancy at our November 19th council meeting. Councilmember Hoffmeyer announced his resignation effective November 30th. The city council is accepting applications to fill the vacancy for council position 5. Per the schedule approved by the council, applications must be received by 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, December 5th. Applications should be addressed to our city clerk, Julie Nestor. The application form and schedule are available on our website. The council will hold a special meeting on December 10th to review the applications received, which meet the residency and registered voter criteria, and will create a short list of applicants to interview. Interviews will take place during the council meeting on December 17th, and an appointment is anticipated at that meeting. The person appointed to fill council position 5 will serve until the certification of the November 2025 election, at which time whomever is elected to the position will take over. Spin Cafe public meeting. Tomorrow night, we have a meeting here at the city. We'll host a public meeting, conversation, and presentation regarding Spin Cafe from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. here in council chambers. This public conversation is being held to provide transparency and encourage an open discussion. We have city office closures coming up. City offices will also be closed on Wednesday, December 25th in observance of Christmas Day, and on Wednesday, January 1st in observance of New Year's Day. Garbage collection will move to the next day for both closures. Upcoming events, there are many fun and festive events happening in our area, some of which are displayed on the screen. And with that, I will turn it over to City Council for their comments at this time. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on Melissa York's comments about venue. I understand that we're expecting a pretty good crowd tomorrow, and this room has limited capacity. And I know one of the reasons we like to have meetings here is because we have the ability to record and live stream and broadcast. So, on one hand, it's an accessibility thing, but on the other hand, it's an accessibility thing. The council nixed the community meeting room that was in the original plans of the second story of the water treatment plant, but there is a room down there. I'm wondering, how difficult would it be for us to get audiovisual, like, plugged in and set up and established in that space so that we have a reliable place to shift locations, other than Yacht Club, Elks Lodge, stuff like that? I mean, I don't know what kind of an investment that would be or how difficult that would be, but I think it'd be worth looking into.
In the past, we've had some struggles live streaming from that space. The other thing is the acoustics are not great.
Yeah.
So that's been a concern when we previously talked about using that space.
So we had conversation yesterday, the chief and I did, about potentially moving it to the church tomorrow. But how feasible is that to do at this moment in time with our audio visual to make that happen? Could we do that tomorrow? And is the church available, Chief?
We did not follow up.
We didn't, okay.
You can follow up first.
Okay. Right here, is it the Methodist church. So we would easily just walk people right there. So that was the thought anyway, and I think they can house up to 200 people capacity-wise or something like that. So Tim, is that even feasible to make happen tomorrow before we even start? Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
The other thing that I would say too is, I know Tim has to do some magic when he does that, but we may talk to the church when we have that conversation, because usually most churches nowadays have some capacity for streaming or recording their services.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering if that's a question we might ask tomorrow morning.
So I mean,
as
that
well.
is something I can explore first thing in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have a contingency plan. If it has to be here, it has to be here,
Well, and logistically, just so you know too, for this room, we did some planning, so we're gonna remove like all of this stuff, and we're gonna do the rows this way, all the way across, all the way to the back, so, and we are taping for YouTube, correct?
Yes, we're planning to live stream as well.
We're live streaming too, so
Okay. Yeah, it's not ideal, but,
we're trying.
yeah, I understand that we are dealing with limitations, so thank you.
Thanks for that, though. It's very much appreciated. Anything? Yes, Councilmember Wiesner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I would just like to back up with that I would encourage people to come and hope that maybe this is the start of continuing conversation, right? Because, we're not going to solve everything in one night, but the continuing conversation is going to be imperative as we move through all of this. So, and with that, onto a brighter subject, it's been holiday tradition as long as I've been here in town, the presenting of the wreath from Troop 59, and for the last 7 years, it's been the tradition of everybody having to hear the story about the fact that I used to be in Troop 59 and make those wreaths. And my dad and I actually built the shed that they build those wreaths in each year. They're behind the Fleet Reserve. So there you go, holiday tradition. Keep moving forward. 50 years ago, I think I presented my first wreath here to City Council. So appreciate the Scouts for doing that. Thank you.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Anything else from council? Yes, Councilmember Arms.
I would just like to thank the mayor for coming to the to the center, the senior center, I call it the senior center, and to present the state of the city. I really appreciate it. I thought it was a great venue. You did a great job. and it gave everybody a chance to see everybody, meet, and, then could form other questions they want to ask. So I just want to thank you for doing that. It was great.
Thank you. Anybody else for the good of the order? Councilmember Stuckey? No? Okay. All right, with that, we're going to move on then to ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 2012, amending Oak Harbor Municipal Code 10.12 school safety zones, and here to introduce this topic is our Police Chief, Tony Slowick.
Hello, good evening, City Council and Mayor. Okay, I'm happy to present Ordinance 2012 or 2012. And this is repealing sections of the Oak Harbor Municipal Code related to traffic and parking around the high school and amending the municipal code to add new language. I want to just recognize that this ordinance was brought forward by a citizen, and we have Nikki Tesh here today, and want to thank her for her thoughtful consideration and dedication to our kids that are attending school and what that looks like, because she does a heck of a job there advocating for all our kids. So I really appreciate that. Along with the background with this, there are two municipal codes. They're both there, 1012-150 and 1012-170, that prohibit parking around the high school. There's parking permits that are required under 1012-170 that say that residents along Northwest Fairhaven and other side streets can get parking permits from the police department. However, as long as I've been at the police department, we have never issued parking permits. And that's from when the old high school was in place. There was limited parking, those needs. Additionally, we have two elementary schools in our city which have parking signs posted under the Traffic Engineers Authority 1012-060. So City Council has, or the city has, authority to designate parking restrictions and areas to limit parking within city limits. It's under the WAC, the RCW, and the Municipal Code. And during this process, we talked with our legal advisor, talked with city engineering, the police department, Nikki, our citizens, reached out and went to both the public schools and our private schools and discussed with them what we were really trying to do. Through that process, this ordinance has evolved, and what we really wanted to do is find something that was a single school safety zone ordinance, allowed for future growth for future schools, allowed for the changes to occur with our traffic engineer to implement changes if new things arise out of different habits at the school. Let's just talk about like parent pickup drop-off areas or different things like that. So it allowed some flexibility there and provided clear messaging to the public, and then ensured consistency with traffic engineering, education, and enforcement. Sorry about that. So through this recommended ordinance change, it's repealing parking on Northwest 2nd Avenue under Municipal Code 1012-150, repealing parking near the high school under Municipal Code 1012-170, and adding a definition for a school safety zone under the Municipal Code definitions. So the intent behind that is two parts. One is we want to have language that is consistent throughout our revised Code of Washington. This language is used for criminal investigations when we talk about like firearms and drug crimes. Additionally, it provides the same type of reach around a school zone that we currently see with our two existing ordinances at the high school. As well as this covers all K through 12 schools, covers the college. It allows for flexibility of if new schools pop up within the city, and it allows for private schools as well. So like the Christian school. So when we look at the ordinance and the overlay of the mapping, so on the left, where it says current no parking area, under those two municipal codes, all the streets in the yellow area are where we have restricted parking at. Under this new ordinance, it expands that same restricted parking, and it applies it to all our schools, but it doesn't require us to put signs out there. It allows that flexibility based off of need and what is the traffic pattern seeing, what is the safety concerns seeing for those school zone. It also allows us to have consistent signage. So these are examples of signs that we currently have in use in our school safety zones. So no parking, drive-through lanes, and pickup drop-off lanes. And I just want to ask if there's any questions, and I'll be asking for a motion tonight for this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So I will first confirm with our City Clerk, Julie Nestor, that we have received no public comment on this issue.
No, Mayor, no public comments were received.
All right, and then I would like to ask those who are here with us this evening if they have anything that they would like to step forward and make public comment on as it relates to this issue. Yes, step forward, state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Mayor, City Council, thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Nicole Tesh. I live at 847 Southwest Fairhaven Drive. I wanted to first say thank you to the Oak Harbor Police Department and the Oak Harbor City Council for not only hearing the words that I said during public comment, but for taking this code change to the next level. This really makes a huge difference amongst all of our schools, the university, and our public school, or in our private schools, to be able to allow for safe pickup and drop off, allow for areas where people cannot park their derelict vehicles, to allow for that horrible sight distance so people can see when they're picking up their kiddos. I'm really grateful for the process and the due diligence of Chief Slowick. He worked with me all along the way. He looked at neighboring communities and neighboring school districts to see what paths they have in place and took all of that into consideration to bring to you Ordinance 2012. And I am in favor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else that would like to step forward and make comment at this time? All right, hearing none, I will call upon council for their comments at this time or questions. Yes, Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Slowick, just for my mind, this is designed as a tool.
That's correct.
And there's a implementation is based upon need.
That's correct.
Okay. And just to circle back, yeah, I mean, this is a step in the right direction. The reality is we actually looked, I think, 4 years ago, we discussed, street parking and how to, deal with some of these issues throughout the city. So I'm happy with the overlap. I'm happy with the size of it, understanding that it's a tool, right? And if it works out well as a tool for you, obviously we need to continue that discussion. I think we got into last time discussing things like, for example, RVs can be parked on street parking if it's in front of the owner of the house, right? So that we don't have them showing up in random locations, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm happy to support this tool so that you guys have another one in your back pocket to deal with it when you need to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiesner. Anybody else for the good of the order? Councilmember Stuckey.
So I want to just make sure I understand. So can we go back to that slide that shows the area? Okay. I mean, obviously we're talking about, I'm just guessing, it looks like a third of the city here or so. And so doing this just gives you the ability, allows you to do things like parking enforcement or speed enforcement. That doesn't necessarily mean tomorrow everywhere in the yellow is 20 miles an hour. Everywhere in the yellow is no parking.
100%. So what this does is, and I'll just say like traffic calming, usually that's where those complaints come in, where it comes to city engineering. We look at what is the problem, try to come up with solutions if it's law enforcement related, if it's signage, if whatever those things might be. This allows our traffic engineer, which is Alex Warner, to apply those signs at areas that are impacted during school hours or around the school. So it allows, we were already applying the signs in areas like Oak Harbor Elementary School, where there's a drive for a parent pickup drop-off. Those signs have actually been in place for like 2.5, maybe 3 years now. And it's under the traffic engineers codes. So this would allow that same thing. It's just us defining what is a school zone, and we're taking that same consistent school zone throughout the RCW, which is the same language. So for law enforcement, they just have that same definition. It's not creating a new definition that would get confusing for them.
And then,
Let me just add one more thing. Law enforcement's not going up and putting up signs. Again, it's our traffic engineer that will make that assessment and determination.
sure. And then, and I believe the answer is yes, is the school administration building downtown considered part of this?
It is, because there is a school that's in the basement of the school district admin
Gotcha.
building. That's why it qualifies.
Gotcha.
If it did not have that facility and say that gets moved to a different location, it would not qualify.
So it's just if there's a school there. So like if they had a bus depot somewhere that was just buses somewhere else, that doesn't apply there.
That's correct. It's only where the schools are located.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and there is a lot of overlap. So where you see a lot of yellow, it's because we have a lot of schools in that, along that midway, area, Woodby Avenue, those type of things, and there's a lot of overlap there.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Anybody else? Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I have this a question, or the same questions, in that I'm just concerned about the neighborhoods, right? I mean, the idea behind this was about sightlines, correct? It was being able to see coming in and out. I just don't want to see unintended consequences where somebody can't park in front of their own house. I mean, it's in a bunch of neighborhoods. I'd hate to see somebody calling the police on somebody else saying, well, this car is parked here, when they have the right to be parked there. It's in a neighborhood. It's in front of their own home. So, I understand around the high school, right? Because you got a bunch of kids that are high school age that will drive to the school. But when we're talking about Broadview Elementary School, for example, or Hillcrest, it's those neighborhoods that are surrounding there that are being impacted by this overlay potentially. So, what assurances can you give us that that's not going to affect those individual property owners and their right to park in front of their house and stuff?
Well, I guess I would lean back on our traffic engineer and that engineering team, where they go out and do studies. They assess the requirement and need before they implement any sign changes or anything like that. So I believe that we have some checks and balances in our traffic calming program that really go and look at all that information, and it gets assessed by many different layers of law enforcement, of engineering, of codes. It goes up, the public works director sees those things. So, there's a lot of oversight in that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. Anybody else? All right, hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion then. Councilmember Wiesner.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 2012, repealing sections of the Oak Harbor Municipal Code 10.12.150 and Oak Harbor Municipal Code 10.12.170 relating to parking, and amending Oak Harbor Municipal Code 10.12.010.
Second.
All right, we have a motion as presented by Councilmember Wiesner, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move forward to the next ordinance, ordinance number 2013, adopting chapter 10.30 of the Oak Harbor Municipal Code relating to the use of wheeled all-terrain vehicles on city streets. And here to introduce this topic is Police Chief Tony Swillick.
All right, hello everybody. I'm here to talk about ordinance 2013, adopting chapter 10.30 of the Oak Harbor Municipal Code relating to wheeled all-terrain vehicles. The background with this is that the police department has been approached by citizens requesting to use all-terrain vehicles on city streets as expanded transportation options. The revised Code of Washington requires that cities and towns adopt an ordinance authorizing the use of these vehicles if you're in a county population over 12,000 people. So if you're in a county population under 12,000, it's automatically allowed. But for us, we would need to adopt something. We have about, I would say, anywhere between a half dozen and a dozen of these vehicles that have been on our streets for about 18 months now. Law enforcement has stopped those citizens, provided informational warnings, advised them that we're considering this ordinance and recommended they don't drive the vehicles. We were not citing anybody or issuing tickets or anything like that. We felt like this was an education piece. And I've received several comments since this packet has been put out of people supporting this ordinance as well. So the legal authority for this ordinance is under RCW 4609, authorizes cities to approve an operation of wheeled all-terrain vehicles upon local public roadways, providing such regulations are not less stringent than the RCW. So through this process, worked with legal, worked with city engineering. City engineering said as part of their master traffic plan, these are those alternative means of transportation that cost less than a vehicle that they have been looking at as a regional traffic entity. The police departments weighed in on this. We've reviewed the RCW and we've looked at comparable jurisdictions as well. So what is a wheeled all-terrain vehicle? So it's a motorized, non-highway vehicle with handlebars. There's two different styles. So this one's like an ATV with handlebars. Here's all the requirements for it. Has 4 tires, just like a motorcycle, but it is a straddled vehicle. The other alternative is a utility type vehicle designed for and capable of traveling over designated roadways. Requires 4 tires. There's all the requirements there on what that vehicle would be. What it's not, they're not dune buggies, they're not snowmobiles, and they're not golf carts. So there are some restrictions with that. Additionally, those vehicles are all required to, the driver's required to have a driver's license. Their vehicles are required to be registered with the Department of Licensing. And if they're bought at a dealership, the dealership certifies that all of the traffic control equipment on the vehicle, lights, taillights, turn signals, all of those things are in compliance with state law when it goes to Department of Licensing. If it's a personal vehicle and you're going to, maybe you use it off-road, but you wanted to get it licensed for on-road use, you would have to go to the state patrol to get a vehicle exam done, and then that information, if approved and has all the equipment, goes to the state patrol, and then that license plate is issued. It is not an ORV or a recreational vehicle tab or tag that you can get for a lot of these side-by-sides to drive on dirt utility roads. It is actually a Washington state license plate and registration. Additionally, state law requires insurance. And what I found when doing this, looking into this, is the more restrictive than the RCW is requiring people being 18 years or older to operate the vehicle. So I'll just say I made a mistake here. It's not seatbelts, or I'm sorry, it's not helmets or windshields, but these are all safety features that may be required. So seatbelts, roll bars, those would be a thing. If you don't have a roll bar, then you would be required to have a helmet. If you have a roll bar and a seatbelt and have a windshield, then you don't have to have a helmet. So there's a lot of variables with this, but all vehicles would have headlights, taillights, mirrors, turn signals, those type of things. Additionally, the ordinance and the RCW is restricted to city streets less than 35 miles an hour. All of the vehicles are required when as built to be able to travel 35 miles an hour or more when they were built by the manufacturer. It also does not allow for driving on SR20, any portion of SR20, but it does allow for crossing SR20 if you're crossing at a city street, and when you cross the street, you're back on a city street. So if you're crossing on a city street, cross the highway, and now you're in a county property, and the county doesn't have this ordinance, which they do not, that would be illegal. You could not cross the highway there. You'd have to be on city streets. There are caveats allowed in this ordinance and in the RCW to petition the state to allow vehicles to drive on SR20. But my recommendation is that that's a high-density area, and I think that we would have higher traffic collisions and accidents that would be things that we wouldn't want to approach. So my recommendation is we move forward and not allow any vehicles driving on SR20. So the jurisdictional requirement, if this ordinance is approved, is that we actually have to post a map on our city website and have the information posted on the face page of our city website. City engineering is already working on a map, a tentative map, if this ordinance was approved, and then we would be working with Maggie to get that posted on the city website. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. And here's the suggested motion.
All right, so first I will confirm with Julie that we've received no public comments on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No comments were received.
Great, and then I would call upon those of us here this evening, if you have comment that you would like to step forward and make on this issue, please step forward now, state your name, address, and your comment. All right, hearing none, I will call upon council for their questions and comments. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Why not golf carts?
So golf carts could be allowed if they're a vehicle that is able to travel 35 miles an hour, has the seat belts and all of the safety features, and is able to get a registration. Then there could be a multi-use vehicle like that. Typically, we call those utility vehicles, and often like municipalities have those driving around. You'll see them on the Navy base, those things. A traditional golf cart, like you would have at the golf course, doesn't meet those requirements, and we don't allow those to drive on the city street. We do allow those residents that are within the immediate jurisdiction of our local golf course to drive on the shoulder. That's been permitted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Do these vehicles typically have speedometers on them?
They do.
Okay. And then why make it 18? It's if you can get a motorcycle endorsement at 16, you can drive a car at 16. It's got all the safety features. Why make that 18-year-old?
Because the motorcycle endorsement as a 16-year-old is a temporary endorsement. You don't get a permanent motorcycle license until you're 18.
Okay.
There are requirements that go along with that endorsement, and often that is required to be, traveling with another adult, those type of things, daylight hours, those type of things.
Okay.
Yep.
And to go back to my original comment about for the last motion about unintended consequences, do you foresee this as causing additional work for your officers and trying to patrol some of this, or somebody inadvertently drives from a city street to a county street, or the word didn't get out that these are now allowed, and so people see these vehicles up and down the road and
so I've notified the State Patrol and I've notified the county of this, that we're considering this ordinance. The county at this time, it doesn't appear that they are considering the ordinance. For us, I don't believe we're not planning on going and ticketing anybody in the out of city limits for improper use of the vehicle. I could see somebody getting maybe pulled over and warning them. I think there are some challenges with this ordinance and not having the county involved in it, but somebody's got to sort of start the conversation often. I have reached out to the commanding officer at the base. They have a traffic ordinance where it talks about golf carts being able to drive on their streets and has some requirements. If this ordinance gets approved, we're taking this ordinance to the Navy to decide if they're going to allow these vehicles in Navy housing and on the base as well. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. Councilmember Stuckey.
Growing up, I always wanted one of these, and I was doing a little more research. I'm like, man, those things look fun. So I can't say I might not end up with one of these in the future. Couple questions. So the 35 miles an hour, did I hear you correctly? That's an RCW?
Yeah, so in the RCW, it talks about 35 miles an hour being the restriction. There is a caveat in county roads allowing it to go up to 60 miles an hour, but I do not recommend that at all.
No, nor do I. I was just thinking the 40, because so many things are 40 unless otherwise posted and things like that. I mean,
Actually, in the city, everything's 25 unless
Always-
otherwise posted.
Okay.
Where you have posted is the 40 and the 30.
Wow, I just stepped in it, didn't I?
And really, the place that you're restricting it is on the high, you're not driving the highway at all, but every part of the east side of the city and the west side of the city, you can cross the highway at a intersection that has city streets on both sides and get in transition. So you could you could be living over, in the southeast quadrant of town and be able to make it to Walmart. You can make it to Pioneer Way and, all these different locations with the vehicle up to the high school if you wanted to. I mean, there is access through all of those things on the roadways based off the limits we're asking for.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it sounds good. I mean, obviously the concern which Councilmember Marshall addressed is there's quite a bit of county roads that are, people think are in the city or, or are in the city, but are county roads. And so I can definitely see people saying, hey, now it's legal, go for it, not realizing how restricted it truly would be.
So the city of Snohomish has a similar ordinance. The county of Snohomish does not have the ordinance. The city of Snohomish, when doing my research, they initially had this same language and then actually just adopted the RCW language. They repealed it and adapted the RCW language. But what they've told me is that they found that people are getting out and about more. They like driving their vehicles. They're getting down to the parks. They're going down into their eating out more, those type of things, just because they feel like it's a different mode of transportation that's a little less restrictive. So.
Sounds good. And I always drive 25 miles an hour, of
Yes,
course.
sir. No doubts.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Wiesner.
Now I know why I have a hard time keeping up with you when I'm behind you. Yeah, I mean, I get it, but don't get it, right? I mean, it certainly makes more sense to have it out in the county than it does in the city, right? I mean, if you're looking at it for a fuel saving or a parking saving, I mean, it takes up a lot less parking spot when you're running into town. Oak Harbor's so compact. I mean, you're hopping in it to run a mile from one to the other. But at the end, like I say, I get it, but I don't get it, right? I'm not going to stand in the way of it. I know Langley, for example, they have a golf cart zone, right? And all of downtown Langley is a golf cart zone, and I kind of get that, just because it's a fuel economy issue, it's a pollution reduction issue, it's a parking reduction issue, it's the town is compact. A golf cart can easily get you from one side of town to the other. And it's an inexpensive mode of transportation, easy to maintain, et cetera. These are not so much. I guess my concern with these is these can get a little noisy, especially, somebody drives one of those, the rail type units that, they've modified a little bit. They can get pretty obnoxiously loud, and that, obnoxious loud is going to be, coming down, Pioneer Way, in the middle of the summer, when everybody's out walking around town. So, gonna watch it, with you, right, to see what happens.
Yeah.
I certainly see the county. This is going to probably force the county to have some discussion about it, right? Because there's just so many areas, like even getting from the Navy base to here, you can't do it without driving on a county road. Just a short little section, but.
Correct.
Got to drive on a county road. So I can see there's going to be a education curve. I think it's like a lot of things. I don't think we're going to end up with 100 of these things running around town, all day long. I don't picture that, but I'm hoping the few people that do take advantage of it, don't abuse it and don't have us wondering why we did it, right? Because quite frankly, we're kind of addressing something that, a few people want, but, there's more important things to be addressed. We've been talking about, how we're going to flow traffic in our downtown, how we're going to adjust parking in our commercial environments, how we're going to decrease our carbon footprint, all those things, and this doesn't address any of them. But like I say, I get it, but don't get it. So I'll support it, but we may have some questions later on.
Definitely.
Thank you, Councilmember Wiesner. Councilmember Arms.
how come this came up? I mean, was it somebody wanted it, or?
Yeah, so there's been probably a half dozen of these vehicles driving around city limits. A lot of the people are like snowbirds that have a motor home. They use this as their vehicle that they tow. They'll tow this down to Arizona or Texas or wherever that it's also allowed. And then when they come back here, they don't want to have a second vehicle, so they just want to use this same vehicle. So that's where a lot of the request has come in. Additionally, people have purchased these in our community without understanding the ordinance requirements that the city or a county would need to adopt an ordinance. So there's been people coming forward saying, hey, I really want to use this vehicle. To address the muffler and noise concerns, there are flash suppressors and things like that that are required for the vehicle, so it can't be like straight piped, or it does have to have a muffler, and we do look at noise ordinances as well.
Well, my concern, traffic is already a zoo, and it's already a mess, and I have reservations about this. You know, it's just more enforcement, and, you know, how many people are going to comply? You know, the 16-year-old kid takes it out and he's not supposed to have it. And a lot of these streets, I mean, traffic is already getting to be something. And for a few people, I just don't see it. You know, right now, I just don't see that this is a good thing. I mean, it's, you know, it's open, you know, all kind of things. When traffic, you know, you go off from O'Leary to either way you're turning on, would be there either way. It's hard to see already. Now you've got something else, and I for one, I'm just not for it. I just think that this timing isn't good timing for it, but I understand why you presented it, and I appreciate it, but that's how I feel.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Arms. Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Yeah, I'm glad to see this come up. I mean, I've had some toys over the years, and I enjoy them. And when I had one here in Oak Harbor, I couldn't ride it, right? I had to haul it off somewhere else. And so if I could have had it and gotten it street legal and been able to use it a little bit, it would have been great for quick run down to, you know, the grocery store, or checking the post office box,
you
or
rode it until they caught you.
no, I did. I did laps on the property, but I did not drive it on the streets. But yeah, I'm in favor of this. I am also. I want to just kind of reiterate the noise levels. I had mufflers on mine, but there's no way my neighbors liked it. You know, it was loud. You could hear it coming a long ways away, and so I think we would need to be mindful of that as we're educating the population and the people about what this ordinance means for our community and where it's going. And yeah, it's good to see it, get it out of the way. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Wittgenstein. I believe we have now heard from everyone, so I would entertain a motion on this issue. Yes, Councilmember Wittgenstein.
I move to approve ordinance number 2013, adopting chapter 10.30 of the Oak Harbor Municipal Code relating to wheeled all-terrain vehicles.
We have a motion as presented by Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Stuckey. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing no additional discussion, all in favor, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 in favor, all opposed. 5-1 passes. Thank you very much. So do my math right? Yeah, thanks. All right. All right, thank you, Chief. We're moving on to contracts and agreements. We have a professional services agreement with John Galt for hearing officer services for the Oak Harbor Police Department. And here to introduce this topic is our City Administrator, Sabrina Combs.
I'm short. Okay. Wait for Tim to pull this up. So just as Tim's pulling this up, there are 3 contracts that are back-to-back here. They are renewals of current services, and we put them into this section of the agenda instead of the consent agenda because they are 2-year agreements. So we wanted to make sure you had a chance to review them. So I will walk through these. So the first one is the professional services contract with John Galt for hearing officer services. This is a professional services agreement, and it's for our hearing officer services as described in the title. And this is for forfeiture cases relating that the Oak Harbor Police Department works on. This contract was initiated in 2014, and it's been amended or extended a couple of times. And so the term of the contract currently is January 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2024. The services for this contract are usually used once a year or less, and it's a paid-as-use basis, so we only pay for what we use. So here is the legal authority for this section of the contract, or for this contract, and why we're using the service. It's an RCW. There's 2 of them listed there, and they go into the details of why. So with that, we have a suggested motion for approving the contract.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I will confirm with our city clerk, Julie Nestor, that we received no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No comments were received.
All right, and I will call upon those here gathered this evening. If you have any comment that you would like to make on this issue, please step forward now and make comment. All right, hearing none, I will call upon council for their comments or questions. Councilmember Stuckey.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign the professional services agreement with John Galt for hearing officer services for the Oak Harbor Police Department.
Second.
We have a motion as presented by Councilmember Stuckey, seconded by Councilmember Wiesner. Is there any further discussion on this issue before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up again is City Administrator Sabrina Combs to present on Professional Services Agreement Amendment Number 3 with Jack Kerr for Public Defense Administration.
So just as an overview, the Public Defense Administrator screens applicants charged with a crime in the city of Oak Harbor limits to determine whether applicants qualify for appointment of an attorney at the city's expense. So I'm going to go through this presentation. So this is a proposed Amendment Number 3. Mr. Kerr's original contract initiated in 2017. Currently, again, it's going to expire, and this amendment will extend the contract through 2026, and it does increase the monthly flat rate that we pay by $100. So with that, we have a motion that's suggested for you.
Thank you, Sabrina. I will confirm with Julie that we have received no public comment.
That's correct, Mayor. No comments have been received.
Great, thank you. And those of you that are here with us this evening, do you have any comment that you would like to make on this matter? If you do, please step forward now. Great. State your name and address, please, and you're limited to 3 minutes.
My name is Andrew Perkins. I am the current provider for the public defense services for the city of Oak Harbor. I work with Mr. Kerr most days, but my address is 1008 Northeast Lindsay Street in Coopville. Looking to move into the city limits, but currently saving up. Mr. Kerr is very easy to work with. He is physically there at the courthouse every week. He himself was an elementary school teacher for many years, understands the value of community, and is also able to work with people who might be a little bit more difficult to work with at times, which in this role in particular can be very, very helpful. He's been doing this job for years, and I just wanted to give my endorsement for him this evening, and to hope that he can continue to have a working relationship with the city. That's all.
Thank you very much for stepping forward and making that comment. Is there anyone else here with us this evening that would like to step forward and make comment on this matter? All right, hearing none, I will call upon council for their questions or comments. Councilmember Wiesner.
Yeah, I'd have to echo Andrew's comments. Jack's a great guy, a lot of tough love there. Not an easy job, not dealing with people who are necessarily in the best frame of mind, and he has to be one of their first contacts, after realizing they've got a road ahead of them. So I move to authorize the mayor to sign professional services agreement Amendment number 3 with Jack Kerr for Public Defense Administration Services.
Second.
All right, we have a motion as presented by Councilmember Wiesner, seconded by Councilmember Wittgenstein. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We are moving on to professional services agreement with Zacher Stock and Krebs Incorporated for prosecuting attorney services. Introducing is our city administrator, Sabrina Combs.
Thank you, Mayor. There we go. Okay, so this is another professional service agreement. This addendum to the agreement is for the firm Zacher Stock and Krebs Incorporated. They are the prosecuting attorney services for the city of Oak Harbor. This contract was initiated back in January 1 of 2022 to March 31st of 2022, and then officially approved by council on April 1st, 2022 to December 31st of 2023. And then we have the current term that's about to run out through December 31st of 2024. So we are proposing another addendum, which includes a modest increase in costs and has been reviewed by the city attorney. So with that, we have a suggestion motion for you.
Great, thank you so much, Sabrina, and I will just confirm with our city clerk, Julie, that we have not received any public comment on this.
That's correct, Mayor. No comments were received.
Great, and I will once again invite those that are gathered here this evening to step forward and make public comment at this time. Chief.
Hey, hi, Mayor. I just wanted to say that Zacher's office and their attorneys have worked really well with the police department. The legal updates, the ability for training, the availability to do extreme risk protection orders has taken a load off our police officers' plate and freed up police officers. They attend court for us, and they go above and beyond any other prosecutor services that we've ever had since in my 21 years at the police department. So definitely in favor of keeping them.
Thank you for that. Is there anybody else gathered here with us this evening that would like to step forward and make comment on this matter? All right, hearing none, I will call upon council for their comments or questions at this time. Yes, Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Oh, my mic's on the whole time. I'm just dwindling away over here. How often what's the process in order to get a prosecuting organization or team? How often is that looked at? How often do we put it out for people to?
From the history, it went back to 2022, and the relationship, as has been talked about, has been working really successfully, and our process with them. So that was the last time that we did a thorough process, was back in 2022. Okay. So, and Mayor, when he started in office, we all sat down and had a meeting with them. So we've regularly met with them as well, okay. And they've been willing to work with the city and help us understand some of the issues that are going on, and so that we can, address those items together. So it's been a good working relationship.
Okay, and this is for just one more year, or is this for a 2-year, or?
It's 2-year.
I wanted to make sure that wasn't specified. What's that? Why 2 years versus 1?
It's been the standard of what we've had before, so we just extended the same.
Is that it, Councilmember Wittgenstein?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Councilmember Wiesner?
Just going back to that question that I put in his ear. Initially, the contract was approved for April 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2023, which was a 18-month or a 19-month term. But then we renewed it just for 1 year, January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what? It
says 3 years in the backup. The contract, I'm sorry, Sabrina, if I might.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
The Councilmember Wiesner, the contract actually allows for it to be extended by both parties, should both parties so choose to extend it under the current terms. If terms change, then it has to come back.
Okay, so, yeah, which makes sense, but again, I guess I'm wondering why if we agree to a 2-year contract, do they have any ability to change any terms within that? Is that the reason we're going for a 2-year contract? Because that locks us in at current price or something for 2 years versus 1 year? I mean, what's the advantage of a 2-year?
They did present that data to us that we would lock in with this 2-year rate, so that's what we were also looking at as well.
Okay, so we're locked in for the 2 years versus
Correct.
being locked in for 1 year, so that's the advantage to going to the 2-year
Correct,
contract.
correct. And these are all different things that we were looking at when reviewing these contracts.
And the only reason I bring this up, I guess I'm just going to put out my thoughts. I mean, at the time, of course, when we switched from having city attorney staff to, using contractors, both for prosecution as well as city attorney, we had gone out with some, quite frankly, probably below grade offering. We had, in other words, we couldn't fill the positions, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
And as then we went out to fill the positions contractually wise, right, we found out that we really weren't offering enough even money for that to bring somebody in, right? And so we then had to even step that up in order to bring in some subs. So I think we're a big enough city and we're growing as we continue to grow. I think there is going to need to be a discussion as to getting back to bringing some of the attorney services back in-house. It just seems like a natural at some point in time.
Well, and Councilmember, I would say 2 years actually is nice because it allows us to do it within the budget process if we're going to do that. It gives you time as a council to discuss it. It also allows us to plan for budgeting that. So I think that would potentially give us that option if that's something you want staff to pursue.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to the 2 years if there's a benefit to the city, right? Which it sounds like there is with the locking in the rate, but I wanted you to understand my thought process behind why a 1 year versus a 2 years is rolling around in the back of my mind. It's strictly a cost deal, right? If we can continue, with contractors and do it efficiently and provide the same level of service, that's great. But, as we continue to see, costs escalate out in the subcontract world, I'm just wondering if internally, if a reevaluation of that may not find that, there would be some cost savings. And I just don't want to assume that it's not.
Well, and I think the other benefit for us that we've realized with these contractors is, whether it's a city attorney's office or this firm, is we have multiple attorneys available to us. So in an instance of having one attorney, if something happens with that attorney, we're in a place of trying to figure out and solve that problem. If we have multiple attorneys working at a firm, they come in with multiple levels of expertise, different backgrounds, as well as a variety of things that they can address. And this has provided it in both these areas. So both with Kenyon Deason and with this law firm, we had that opportunity. And so that is a benefit to us as a city that we've seen, especially with our workload like you're talking about.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Sabrina.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I will just add that in my 11 months here that I've been here, we've used multiple attorneys at different firms simultaneously because we've had multiple issues going on. So,
and I need to correct, we've all been trying to look at the documents behind the scenes. It's a 3-year term for this one. Sorry, my initial notes of 2 year was, we've had a lot of moving dates with 3 contracts, sorry.
And again, we're locked in for 3 years on pricing with
Yes, it is a pricing, and they offered that up when they first sent it to us. So
they're not gonna raise it.
that is what it says in the contract, yes.
There it is, that's it. Still a 4%.
So it's a 4% per year built-in lock-in.
But when you consider the amount that we talk about for COLA and other things, when we factor those in for our own staff or other departments, and the difficulty with finding attorneys providing these services, that is a challenge.
And do we have any out within the contract at all, or is it?
I mean, I'd have to look into the contract document to give you that specific, but,
Okay. I'll yield to the rest of the council. Thank you.
Councilmember Marshall.
Mayor. So over the course of this 3 years, we're actually looking at a 22.5% increase, because the initial increase is going to be at 14.5%, within 4% in the second year and 4% in the third year. And what concerns me with this, and I hear what you're saying, Chief, and Sabrina, and the value of what this firm provides. I'm not questioning that at all. I guess the concern I have is even the primary, Mr. Zacher, identifies this as being an unprecedented request to increase by this amount, the 14.5%. In his letter to the city, he says that this 14.5% is an unprecedented request for an increase. And he's open to the discussion and negotiation. And so how much negotiation did we actually do? Did we just take him at the 14.5%? and then 4% and 4%. So we're really looking at 22.5% over 3 years. At what level does that trigger us to require us to go then and do another bid, a solicitation to look into other companies?
We didn't do a lot of negotiation because we looked at the increases that were coming in when you look at the annual increases, and we had those conversations looking at our budget and other things, as well as the evaluation, because we haven't had increases with them in the past, and so we were trying to make sure that we were working with a contractor and what was, going on with the requests that we have and the caseload we have. We can go back and have that process, but I think what we evaluated was also the benefit of their services and what they were providing with the variety of attorneys they had and the services that we've received over the last couple of years working with them.
Is there any level that requires us then to go back to a rebid? I mean, once they go past a certain amount of increase, do we have to then rebid those services?
I mean, we can do a rebid if we want to. That's something that, we as a city can make those decisions. It's just in looking at the work and the success we've had with working with this firm, there wasn't a point where we were at that we felt that we needed to, in talking with the different people who are working on this contract or with this vendor, we weren't feeling like we needed to do any changes with the law firm that we currently had.
And I understand that. I'm not debating that. I guess my question is, like, when we were looking at the ball fields, for example, and then there was an additional scope of work, that additional scope of work then triggered the requirement for us to then rebid that process. Is there a threshold here with this type of contract that requires us then to rebid that?
I mean, I don't have a threshold right now. I'm sorry? Oh, is it Hillary who's trying to talk?
Yeah, Hillary.
That's the noise. Okay, I was like, what was the?
I was trying to hem my way into the conversation.
No, you're fine.
So, no, there's no trigger to have us that would require us to rebid the contract. It's really what the city wants to stomach in terms of increased rates.
Okay.
And just to assuage the other concerns I heard, if you look at paragraph 6.3, we can terminate the contract with 120 days notice before the terms end. So although it's a 3-year term and we lock in those rates, if you decide you want to go in-house or some, amazing new firm moves to town and you want to go with them, you can terminate the contract and they can, rebid at that time, or you can switch it over. Professional services are a little bit different than public works, so you have a little more flexibility there. So.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question. Thank you, Hillary.
Yep.
And I guess just to go back to your comment that you made, Sabrina, though, that the 2-year agreement works well with our budget cycle. Is that, now that we're in a 3-year, how does that affect our budget cycle?
I mean, it's still something that we can do. I think we just usually, looking at different budget cycles, we consider and plan for the next one. So a 3-year also allows for that because we know what we're going into with those costs. I think the other thing that we think about too is with this law firm that we're working with, we have also set up an office situation over at the police department that is established for this law firm. They come into our offices and actually work out of those. They work directly with our paralegal. So there's been a lot of arrangements with that have been set in place as well.
Okay.
So in considering changing, these are all factors that we would have to consider in going forward.
Sure. And we did.
I have some context to provide too.
Please, yeah, go right ahead. Yes.
Oh, all right. Just for your edification, I did some calculations, and yes, the increase is 14%. That equates to about $20,000 a year.
Okay.
We took this into account when we were putting the budget together for both years, 25 and 26, and when we put the budget together for 27, 28, unless we invoke that 120-day clause, we'll take that additional 4% increase into account as well. But just to put it in context, the other side of prosecuting attorneys is, I guess, public defenders. And as you know, statewide, the cost of public defenders has gone up dramatically. I mean, our costs, I just looked at it for the last item, the budget basically doubled from 2023 to 24, 25, and 26. That's almost $180,000. And we had to, one of the components of raising those utility taxes was to pay for new police officers, but also to pay for public defense. This amount is less in comparison, and also in percentage from public defense, and it's already included in the biennial budget.
Okay. All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything else? Questions, comments? Hearing, yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign the addendum to professional services agreement with Zachar Stock and Krebs Inc., PS, for prosecuting attorney services.
Second.
We have a motion as presented by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Marshall. Is there any further discussion? Before I call for a vote, hearing no further discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Last item on the agenda is Touchstone Investment Annexation Request, parcel R13333-281-4370, located at 2622 and 2624 Airline Way, Oak Harbor, Washington. And here to introduce this topic is our principal planner, Kak Kmek.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. Kak Kmek, principal planner, presenting an annexation request. So just want to let you know that since we wrote the report and sent the report to the to the city council, I have one minor change to consider as you consider this request, and I'll go over it in my presentation. So as with any annexation request, the first step is the property owner sending a letter to the mayor requesting to be in the city, and then the city holds this public meeting within 60 days to decide whether you want to annex this property, whether you want to geographically modify it, etc. So that's kind of what we're discussing tonight. So the property that we received a request for is along Airline Way, and this property is identified with these dotted lines over here. The requested party is Touchstone Investments. We received a letter from them, the copy of which is in your report. So this property is contiguous to the city with its eastern boundary, and therefore the city can definitely annex this property in without any problems, and that's what we recommend doing. However, in considering whether this annexation should move forward, the council has an option to look at additional properties to consider in this annexation. And one of the properties that I did mention in the report is this property that is to the north, a single property with a single house on it that is in between the city limits and the proposed property. And one of the recommendations to consider is whether that property should be included with this annexation request. And it seems logical, yes, that it should be, and we can recommend that the property owner talk to them. And in fact, I did call Mr. Steve Urbanzi and talk to him and said, can you chat with your neighbor to see if they want to come in? If they want to come in, I think we should recommend that they join the annexation and the city bring them both in. However, if they don't want to come in, this property doesn't have enough value to carry that property. So, that's what that 60% annexation petition is. So when a person comes to petition the annexation to come into the city, and if the city modifies the area, the people signing the petition should have 60% of the value of the entire annexation area. That's kind of what it is. So if it is just these two properties, this property's value is 50% more than that property, so they won't be able to carry the annexation, won't be able to bring them in if they don't sign it. However, it does, it is worth it to kind of explore that option. Since I wrote the report, I found out a little more information about this property. I have a question mark here, and that property owner had contacted the city, I guess, a few months ago and wanted a water connection, but at that time they're not contiguous, so they were not able to get that connection because we would require annexation for that. So knowing that information, I've also contacted Mr. Steve Urbanzi and said, why don't you contact your neighbor and see if that person wants to. So if these two property owners are willing signers, then they'll carry that small property in and can come in. So there's some moving puzzles to it. So what we recommend that the city council do is authorize the property owner to go ahead with the annexation proceedings and contact these two property owners. If they're willing to sign it, we'll bring them all in. For any reason, if they don't sign, we can still bring this property in and have consider development for it. So it's a win-win. So what we're recommending is just to keep the annexation kind of proposal a little flexible, so we can consider these options while annexation. So that is the recommendation that we have tonight for you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So Julie, I would just like to confirm there's no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments have been received.
Great, thank you. And then just confirm with those here with us this evening, is there anyone that would like to step forward and make public comment on this issue? All right, hearing none, I will then turn it over to council for their questions or comments, and that would be Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. CAC, what about the property to the south?
If they want to come in, they can come in as well.
I mean, I'm more intrigued by that property just because of the land mass, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if we're looking to, especially I think Mr. Verbarnsi requested higher density on his property, so he'd be looking at doing multiple family. I mean, that would make a much larger project and make a lot more doors.
Absolutely. I mean, we know there's interest here and this and interest here, so we can carry that property. We'll be happy to bring that property in as well, because the infrastructure will be extended to the edge of the property lines anyway, so.
Well, and it squares off that area nicely, but then it also gives us, that major connection if we ever did end up with something with Hillcrest, as we understand, that's a challenge for us. But obviously that would, give the loop to complete that connection if that ever were to occur. So, because it seems to me like if we, well, I guess we'd end up with something on the other side of the road with that one, but having that south property butting up against Hillcrest there for those physical connections, as well as, I can certainly, see medium density there. We've got medium density surrounding that.
Absolutely. I mean, this property can come in with this, or they can come in by themselves. I mean, there's a choice there. I mean, we'll take them either way.
Well, ideally for the city, I think coming in together would be the choice, and maybe you can approach Mr. Verbarnsi about
We'll
that
definitely
discussion
recommend that they try
since he's knocking on doors.
Yes,
All right, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. I think it would be worth talking to both of the neighbors to just, like you said, square it off nicely. It would certainly be my preference not to have, a house in city limits and then outside of city limits and then in city limits, obviously. So if we could just get that whole chunk annexed, then that would be my preference. So if he doesn't mind talking to his neighbors, I would be really curious to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anybody else for the good of the order? Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to avoid that pocket of services, I would not be in favor of annexing this property without including that property to the north.
To the north?
Yes, yes, because we don't want to create a pocket where that one piece of property then is county, where everybody else around it is city. Ideally, I do like the idea of the north and the south and having, and even across the street there. But if we were looking at just this one annexation, I would not be in favor of annexing this particular property without being able to include that one.
Without the surrounding, I just want to let, we can extend infrastructure along Airline Way to just develop this property, even if that doesn't come in. I'm just saying that it is developable. I understand that we want to keep our borders kind of square and bring them all in. Just in light of how much developable land we need in the city.
It creates an issue for emergency services, right? So if that one property is Oak Harbor Police Department, Oak Harbor Fire, but the one that's in the middle is the one that is North Woodbury Fire or whomever, it creates an issue. And so to prevent that issue, I would not be in favor of annexing this sole piece without also including that one to the north. So we have that kind of that clean boundary line then for all of our emergency services.
Absolutely. I can pass that along as something for them to consider so that they can kind of talk to their neighbors and make sure that they can, if these two property owners are willing property owners, we don't need the signature, we can bring them in. So that would be the strategy.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry, I want to go a second time if there's anybody else that wants to speak. Hypothetically, if the single property to the north did not love the idea of being annexed, but we have approval from the other three properties, and so we can say, too bad, we want clean lines. What kind of obligation does the property owner have in terms of connecting to utilities or establishing infrastructure? Does the city foot the bill for all of that? Or do we say, too bad, you have to do it, and oh, by the way, it's going to be X amount of dollars?
They will, so they can continue to operate as is, as long as the infrastructure is functioning. So when the infrastructure fails, the question will be, what will they have to do? So if they want water connection.
They would have to make that investment anyway, one way or the other.
At some point,
okay.
yes. So they can do it along with development, and they can choose to have water at any time. It'll be usually the septic system. They'll probably live out the life of the septic system, and then when they get to change it, they'll have to connect to sewer.
Okay, thank you.
So just to confirm what you're saying, they're not going to be required to hook up if we annex them in, even though they don't want to be annexed in?
Not immediately. There are some exceptions for single-family residences to continue operating septic systems till the system fails, and then they can connect. So they will continue to operate, yes.
Anything else for the good of the order on this issue?
Do you need any action from
Just
us?
to move to have the annexation proceedings continue on as requested. So.
I move to commence annexation proceedings for Touchstone Investments LLC properties and adjacent willing property owners.
So we have a motion as presented by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Wigginstein. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Councilmember Marshall.
Yeah. Just clarifying, we're not actually approving the annexation, right? We're just approving the moving it forward.
Yes.
Okay, understood. All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or clarification? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That concludes everything. There being no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, raise your hand.